Super honored to share yet another amazing purpose story and journey with you today. Please give a warm welcome to Vasheti. I would like to introduce you and thank you for joining us here today.
Thank you, Rose. I'm so happy to join you and tell you a little bit about my purpose story. Yes.
Yeah. So really quick, I'll just ask you where you're from and then we'll dive into your story.
Great. I am currently located in Everett, Washington, just north of Seattle.
Perfect. All right. So I would like to hear straight from the beginning, even if at that time you didn't see that that's where your purpose journey started. If you could take us back to those first aha moments and lead us all the way up to where we are today, to where your purpose has led you. So please go ahead and tell us your story.
Yeah. So I actually will kind of start, I'll go back even further. Um, my career started, I will say I got really inspired when I started my job at Walt Disney World. So I was really fortunate to land in a position at Walt Disney World in Central Florida when I was living there. And that was super inspirational for me to really set the stage for, I guess, my lifelong career. And that really inspired me to want to work with families and want to and of course, I was, younger then, but that really was setting the stage for a foundation for really wanting me to make life better for families. I really was inspired when I worked at Disney, and I worked there for probably about 7 or 8 years. And I was so inspired because the whole premise when you're working at Disney is it's like the happiest place in the world for families. And so, you're really the goal there is to make the experience the best experience you can for the guests there. And so in whatever way you can, you're trying to make the experience the best it can be for the families. And so that's really the foundation that was instilled in me is how can I make the experience the best it can be for the families that I engage with, the families I encounter. And so that's really the foundation that was instilled in me. And I believe, when I even going back further, what hard work was always instilled in me in being raised. So through my grandfather and through my mother, I was raised as a single child. And my mother, was always working hard. And my grandfather always instilled in us that, a dollar earned was a dollar raised. You really had to earn it um, to you really had to earn it, and my mother really modeled that for me as a single parent. So fast forward in, me working really hard to get to, I worked really hard in nonprofits. That's really where I found my passion and where I landed in my career. And I moving back to Seattle. So I lived in Florida for 18 years and then moved back to Washington State where I was born and raised. And then was really working towards an executive director position in a nonprofit and had made it, right? So I had made it into this executive director role with a music therapy organization that I had really loved. I had been very passionate about this organization and had been given carte blanche to really mold the organization. I had about 8 staff members underneath me and had been working really hard to get to the place where I was. And then I started having some odd symptoms manifest with me that were not significant, but were light enough for me to notice that something was starting to occur. Like I had vision problems. I had started having tension headaches, like temple headaches, only on one side of my head. I started having numbness and tingling on my left arm. So I started having some symptoms that were very curious to me. And so I went to the eye doctor. I thought that's going to be the best way for me to, the path of least resistance to get this figured out. And sure enough, I was told that I needed to go get a more thorough diagnosis, a more thorough eye exam. And I went to our state's emergency hospital, and they gave me an MRI, and they told me that I needed to stay and they needed to call my husband. And I started getting nervous, and they had my husband come and then told me the news that I had a tumor, a brain tumor, the size of a small grapefruit or a baseball. And I, at that time, I mean, I like my life flashed before my eyes. I had, everything was a blur. I really was stopped dead in my tracks and didn't really know what to do. And really, that was a life-defining moment for me. And I was immediately set up with a surgeon, and I wasn't really given any other options but a craniotomy. And at the time, I didn't even know what a craniotomy was. So I was terrified, and I was completely glazed over. I couldn't hear any of the words that I was being told. I basically was told, and of course my husband was, hearing what was being said, but basically I was told I had 2 weeks to get my affairs in order, and that I was being scheduled for brain surgery in 2 weeks. And so this was everything going into a standstill, and I had to make really key decisions about my personal life, my professional life. And mind you, I didn't even get a chance to say, I have 2 kids. So, my personal life, that my husband, who's, I've been married to for over 30 years, but yeah, I have, 2 adult children, a son and a daughter. And, so getting my personal affairs in order, that's huge. I've got, a very supportive family, and, so getting that in order is huge. And then, I really had a work family that I had become very close to and very committed to and felt hugely responsible for, and was really the only person at the helm leading this organization, and did not have, the hit by the bus scenario that we all talk about and we think about. I didn't have a backup plan. I did not have a hit by the bus scenario. I didn't have that plan in place. And so this was a really tough situation to be caught in. And I had to really make all of these really serious decisions in a matter of 2 weeks, when I just received this really significant news and couldn't even think and couldn't even absorb any of the information that I was hearing. So I enlisted my cousin, because then, of course, at this point, my husband was just as in shock, as much shock as I was. So I enlisted my cousin to start going on doctor's appointments with me and my husband. I started recording the doctor's appointments so that I could make sure that I absorbed everything that was being said. And then I remember making it to the day of surgery and vaguely remember the day of surgery as being just, again, a blur. I remember going to surgery just with my husband because it was very early in the morning. And it was one surgeon, and it was a long surgery. It ended up being 13 hours long.
Ooh, wow.
And the tumor was next to my speech center, and they didn't know if I was going to be able to talk when I woke up. So when I woke up and when I was in the ICU, I woke up and I did say, "I love you" to my husband. And he started bawling and was hysterical. And I of course was completely, when I woke up, I couldn't open my eyes. I had my head was in a brace,
Yeah.
that thing. I couldn't open my eyes and I couldn't open my mouth, and I was very confused. I didn't understand what was going on. And so I was very confused. And so when he was crying, I wasn't understanding what was going on. And then I didn't know why I couldn't open my eyes or my mouth or anything. And then it dawned on me that, throughout all of those like 2 weeks prior, I did not in any of this process ask about the recovery. So when I opened or thought I could open my eyes, or, when I couldn't open my mouth. And so when I was waking up in ICU and I was sitting here like confused and not necessarily knowing what was going on, I was really not knowing what was going on because I did not ask at all about what would happen afterwards, because I was so worried about me not waking up. I didn't think I was going to wake up from the surgery. I thought I was going to die. And so I was so scared that I was not going to make it through this surgery that I did not bother, or did not even think. I was in such shock. I did not even think about asking about afterwards. So I think that's probably the first thing that I would say to anybody that goes through anything like this is please, please, please make sure that you ask about the recovery, because that's probably the biggest thing the hardest part was the recovery for me. And I had no idea what was ahead. So it was 3 months of hardship that I had to go through, of recovering. And I had no awareness of what that was. So so make sure you know what follows after any type of procedure that you have coming up, because even if you're in shock, the follow-up and the recovery portion is so important, and knowing what that entails is really, it's part of that journey. And And so, yeah, I woke up and I was so thankful to be alive because that was such a fear of mine. But then I realized that I had all of this other stuff that I had to deal with. And what that other stuff entailed was really, I, couldn't walk. I couldn't I couldn't open my eyes. I couldn't open my mouth. I figured out that they ended up cutting a muscle in my jaw. I didn't know that they were going to do that. So I couldn't talk. I mean, but it wasn't because it was close to my speech center. It was just because I had a muscle that was cut. So that I had to work on reworking my mouth to move.
Wow.
I couldn't, but I literally couldn't walk. So I had to do like physical therapy to walk again. My thinking was so, like my cognition was so, I had to go through therapy to relearn to think again. And it took me like 3 months to get to a place where I was approved to drive again and approved to go back to work again. So all of the therapies, and I was going to therapies, 3 different therapies, 3 times a week for 3 months.
Wow.
So it
Well,
was extensive.
I mean, first, I just want to thank you for sharing this. I mean, like, so vulnerable experience that you had. And, for hopefully most people don't have to endure that. But like you said, like to just be aware and to have that hope of the after part, because it is overwhelming to focus on the fear of what could happen.
Yeah.
And so what has that led you to today? What is your purpose in from this experience?
So finally, after going through and finally realizing after COVID, I realized that life, my livelihood, my wellness, because I continued deteriorating. I continued giving to others at the expense of myself.
Mhm.
And I continued to just give to give of myself to others. And then finally one day I said, this has got to stop. I have to focus on myself. I am worth it. I deserve better. I have I have and frankly, the salary I was making was only 80,000 a year. So I'm just going to put that out there, that the $80,000 salary I was making and my livelihood, I finally said was not worth it. And so I made a huge jump, and that's when I got some coaching of my own. And I went and got some coaching through Sage Levine, and also through Cindy Wegman. So I have gotten some coaching for my own speaking, because the tumor was close to my speech center. I went and got coaching to polish up my public speaking, and it became so much more for me. It became mentorship, modeling from a community of women, and just became so much more support than I ever imagined. And so that's something else that I just encourage everybody to do, is to get mentors and coaches that can help guide you through whatever journey you're on. And then also, I now am helping women to get out of these times when they are in, being burnt out from the nonprofits that they're working in. I now help nonprofit executives from because I love nonprofits. I have never been able to escape the work of a nonprofit because I love the impact that they make. I absolutely love the work that they do. So what I do now is I do fractional fundraising. I help them from a consultancy perspective. So I still do fundraising, but I do it from a fractional perspective. I bring in my over 20 years of experience and I try to help relieve their burnout. So I try to help relieve executive director, development directors, people in the nonprofit sectors, overwhelm from my consultancy. So I come in and try to relieve their burnout by helping them with their fundraising overwhelm.
Wow, what a beautiful way to contribute back after going through that and knowing that that's where things need to change. The impact you can share your experience to help people in that situation, whether do you help them kind of get out or just help them with their mental health? And
I actually, so I have a couple different ways that I can help. I have a very tangible program, so I can actually do the work for them. Provide a fundraising plan. I can actually provide a fundraising plan and then implement the plan for them. I actually can do grant writing services. So I have very tangible services that I provide, and I actually provide executive coaching services. So I actually provide mentorship in the actual area of working through that burnout and really working through time management and working through trying to regain that, time and, how to those time skills and, really trying to work with, work within the structure that you have. And so working on those operational challenges. And so really trying to look at some of the structures and some of the, how you can restructure and how you can streamline some of those things within your program. So definitely working with some of those executive directors and coaching them on how they can streamline their systems and so they can get their time back.
that is so beautiful. Well, thank you so much, Vasheti. And how can people connect with you?
My website, they can reach me at rockingfundraising.com.
Awesome. And what would be some last tips to those who are stuck in their corporate world and are suffering the impacts of that mental health and just don't know where to start?
I would just encourage everybody to find a mentor, a friend, a comrade, somebody you can talk to. Just even, for me, I waited far too long to get, whether you call it a coach, a mentor, a community. I just encourage you to, if you're finding yourself that you're in a rut, and you just find that you need somebody to connect with, find somebody to connect to. It's that easy. And you know what? I mean, I am happy to chat with anybody who just wants to chat. And, I'm not out there trying to collect money. I want to honestly, help people who have challenges and who just want to, connect and who just want to vent about with like-minded people.
Wow, that is so beautiful. Well, thank you so much for the impact. And I just want to celebrate your journey through all the ups and the downs and, the life-threatening situation. And what a beautiful purpose and story that has come out of this. And just really want to celebrate that. And thank you so much for joining and sharing your story today.
Thank you, Rose. I really appreciate the opportunity.
All right.